All right. Check, check, check. Testing 1, 2, 3. Welcome, everyone. How are you guys doing today? It's a Sunday. It's a happy day. I have been, man, it's been a big day. I had a bridal shower, and so I've been talking with people since 1 o'clock. And I realized right before the stream, I'm like, whew, I'm tired. So let's see how much steam I have for this very, very important topic. But let's go ahead and see also the chat. We're going to welcome the chat briefly, and then we're going to get into this very heavy topic, I would say, very highly debatable topic. Can you separate the art from the artist? And actually, just as a premise, first of all, even before getting into the chat, to each his own. If you can, yes. If you can't, you don't have to. I'm not going to compel you to do either way. Now, that sounds like a cheap shot or a cheap shot. That's not how to say that. It sounds cheap, like a cop out. That's what I meant to say. But yeah, it's a very highly debatable topic. So I will welcome the chat and then give you my 2 cents. So let's welcome the stream. We've got Brian Gilmartin, and we also had Go Team Ghost Planet earlier last night, actually, when I set the stream up. And then also Echimono, I think is how you pronounce the name. But here, what I could see is Brian Gilmartin, welcome. Big Al Presents, also welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well, Sound Engraver, and wishing you a great stream. I should slow down my speech. Yeah, I should slow down because I've just been talking to people all day. Elias Jones says, guessing this is a continuation of the Asimov thing. I'm pretty sure Roddenberry would not complain about where Trek is today. I don't know. I have no idea what he would think of Trek today, so I can't comment. I suspect Asimov would take more pride in his work than even in his ideology. I think that's what you mean to say. Actually, just to answer your question, this actually is completely separate. So yes, I have been really forward with my commentary on Asimov and the Foundation show, but it was actually this stream is really really paying attention to what Gigawatt had said. Channel member Gigawatt, he brought up a really good question last week at the end of my stream last week, where he said, in a certain instance, is this where you can separate the art from the artist? And it is because people have said in different ways maybe how questionable Asimov is with his philosophies or ideologies, or where he stands on religion, or even his conduct. So I guess that could be an example. Now, I won't dwell on that, or I won't discuss it, because I actually really don't know myself. I don't know the situation myself. But if it does apply to someone like Asimov, then this is also a stream. So anyway, that's good. Daniel Heron, welcome, and thank you for the super chat. Guess who's seeing John Williams in December? That's good. Good for you. And actually, where are you seeing his concert in December? That would be good to know. Still looking forward to the Houston Symphony concert online. That will be fun. All right. And then, of course, my wonderful prof and channel member, drop those truth bombs, my love. I will. I'm going to actually, I'm going to say a lot of stuff that I just suspect people who are artists, not you guys who are artists who listen to me, but people who are artists typically would not agree with. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. See how it goes. Punk Moth says, thank you. I'm thanking you, Punk Moth. You're saying the music is nice. Thank you. That is my, I just realized I had the banner here. It is my original track. This was my first album, actually. And it's actually one of my better tracks, even though it was my first track. I spent so many hours on that. And that is Sunkissed. Yep. So Sunkissed is the track for my album, Sunkissed. You can go on soundengraver.com to see that. So we also have Final Fantasy Fan 12. Welcome. And it's good to see you. And Samuel Proctor throws 2 cents. There's your 2 cents now. What are you going to do to me? And then also Daniel Heron says, Pittsburgh this time. Hopefully you won't get killed. I don't know. Yeah, weren't you in Pittsburgh last year or 2 years ago? And you were just, even walking to your hotel was a questionable thing. I don't know why I can't say that word. Iffy thing. I'm just gonna say iffy. Yeah. Amy Ellison, welcome. Hi. How are you doing? I think you are new here, so welcome. Brian Gilmartin also says it's difficult to separate the art from the artist, and even more so when said artist is a terrible person. Well, we're going to get into this. We're going to get into this. And I think we're going to start right away before it gets too late. In a flurry of notes last night, I was spending like up until 3:30 last night just writing this stuff out. And so I will be actually reading to you some notes that I have that I started just writing. And I will say this outright. Can I talk? I better slow down. I won't cover all of this. Don't expect you would have the whole answer to the situation. There are many opinions on the matter, and it really would be a philosophical dissertation if I really took the time. I'm not making that up, actually. This is a pretty important topic, and so I'm only going to cover what I can cover for this stream. And maybe if it opens up another can of worms, then we can do another stream or another video or something like that. So let's go ahead and get into my notes. I'm going to take a few minutes, maybe a good, 8 to 10 minutes going through the notes, maybe even a little longer depending on the flow. And then we will get back into the chat. We can discuss some examples and yeah, we'll take it away. So let me go ahead and pull up my notes. Unfortunately, this is on a separate document, so I can't share it. I would like to share it, but you'll just have to watch the beautiful avatar of this very artistic, very supple-waist lady, this Victorian garden, Victorian lady, and all of that. Yeah, it looks nice. It looks nice. So, okay, so can you separate the art from the artist? Now, before I begin, I'm going to give you 2 disclosures. And if you find yourself not able to agree with these or agree with me who has these disclosures, then I thank you for your watch time and I would love for you to listen. I would say you might disagree with the rest of my argumentation. So that's why I want to bring up 2 disclosures for you before I start. So disclosure number 1. Any argument I make on art is based on my belief in the 3 transcendentals, which are the truth, the good, and the beautiful. I am Christian and see God as the originator of all. And as creator, he has made me in his image, and therefore I am a creative myself. Because of this, I believe that art does not exist in a vacuum, but rather is brought into existence by our own innate creative nature. So that's the first disclosure. Disclosure number 2. Art is objective. Interpretation of that art is what is subjective. So your own interpretation of that art is what is subjective, but art on its own is objective. Because the beholder's interpretation is what is subjective, the death of the author, in which the artist's intentions are as invalid as the interpretation of the beholder, cannot be true. That's pretty wordy. I'm just going to break it down. So the death of the author means the artist's intentions of the art piece is as valid. It's not superior. It's as valid as the interpretation of the beholder. So what your opinion of someone else's artwork is, that's just as valid. And because I believe art is objective and your own interpretation is what is subjective, what is objective is superior. So therefore, I do not believe in the death of the author. So yes, the beholder can have a valued opinion of any artwork, but ultimately the artist's intentions are what makes the art piece. That is controversial. I understand that, but I'm an artist and I'm just going to say my own opinion on my channel. Further in this disclosure, I do say that all said, regarding the death of the author, I do believe that the art stands alone, irregardless of the past, present, or future actions of the artist. Human beings are fallible, and the art If not presented as propaganda, the art should not be punished. So punish the artist judicially for his crimes. Do not punish the art itself. If it is not propaganda, it needs to stand alone and separate from the artist. So those are my two disclosures. Now I'm going to be talking about two different mindsets. The first mindset is the mindset saying you cannot separate the art from the artist. The second mindset is that you can separate the art from the artist. So let me go ahead and go through the bullet points of the first mindset. So mindset number 1, you cannot separate the art from the artist. So here's a list of bullet points, and if you agree with any of these or all of these, you more or less will have this belief that you cannot separate the two. They are inseparable, or at the very least, quite linked. So the first bullet point is you do support the death of the author. So the artist's intentions is just as valid as the beholder's interpretation. It's not superior. It doesn't matter if the public opinion of an art piece is opposite or different. So in that respect, yes, you do support the death of the author because you believe your own belief of the art is as valid as the artist's belief or intentions of what the art should be. So let me just give an example for that. So C.S. Lewis, he used Christian allegory for a lot of his fiction. And let's say instead you're thinking, well, yes, he used this type of allegory, but let's say you actually do have something that is fundamentally different from the Christian allegory, and you stamp that as a valid interpretation. And therefore, you're thinking, well, it's the death of the author. His own intentions, and he's already dead anyway, so that doesn't matter. His own intentions are just as valid as mine. So your truth is your truth, my truth is my truth. So that's supporting the death of the author. That's the first bullet point. The second bullet point is that you punish the art if there is a profit involved. So you can support the art of the corrupt artist. You know, if the artist has committed a crime or you believe is a terrible person, don't support the art as long as they're alive. But you can support the art and you can enjoy the art if the artist is dead and has nothing to gain. So you're punishing the art for however long the artist is going to be living. The third bullet point is you don't support a higher order of things. And so you cannot fathom that art is inspired by human beings who have a highly intelligent and artistic and creative human nature. So therefore you may see, because you don't believe it's intrinsically of the divine nature of things, of human intelligence and creativity, that is really innate, theologically speaking, especially if you are of the Christian faith, you may think art, therefore, is transactional. It serves the artist first and only for better or worse. Just as an example, I have had people come to me on my YouTube channel saying, the art serves me. It's not about serving people. What are you talking about? Your art being a slave to, the world or something like that. How thoughtless of you. The art is meant to make me feel better. And I'm not saying it can't make you feel better. Like I work in my music all the time. I work in my writing all the time. I find great personal enjoyment. But at the end of the day, I do believe my art will function to the betterment of mankind, to the enjoyment of people listening to music or loving science fiction. That's what I believe. So I do not believe art is transactional in the way that it should just serve me and my own benefit. So if you don't believe or support a higher order of things, using art to serve people for the betterment of mankind, if you don't believe art is intrinsically inspired by highly intelligent and artistic and creative people, based on human nature, then you might have this propensity to believe, no, it cannot be separate from the artist. The artist and the art are inseparable. Third bullet point. Oh, no, that was the third bullet point. Fourth, the fourth bullet point. Art is immediately tainted by the corruption of the artist. So as soon as you're aware that the artist is a bad person, that immediately sullies the experience of the art. So the greater the crime, even, the worse the memory or experience of that art piece is, because feelings matter. So, however bad the artist is, and you come to learn of that artist, you're thinking, oh, I can't enjoy that art piece anymore. Even though it was made years before the crime or years before the corruption of that artist. So again, art is immediately tainted by the corruption of the artist. All right, the fifth bullet point, you try to lessen the severity of the matter with time and distance. So uh, simply put, the artist's death helps the beholder to enjoy the artwork once again. So the longer the passage of time since the death of that author or that artist, the better it is to experience that. I heard that a lot with H.P. Lovecraft. Like, well, I can enjoy some of his stories because if I talk about these stories, that's not benefiting him. He's not getting any public exposure. He's not getting any good reputation because he's long been dead. So as long as the artist is dead, and even better if it's been many, many years or generations since, I can enjoy the art piece with a clear conscience. But if he's alive or she's alive, no, I can't read those books. I can't watch those movies. So long as they are alive, I can't do that. So the person who has this mindset where you cannot separate the art from the artist believes, well, it's not going to be as severe with the passage of time. So it's almost like they're placating the situation. They're placating themselves, saying, oh, okay, well, because the artist is dead and has nothing to gain from my appreciation of their art, I can enjoy it a little bit better. But if they're alive, no, I'm not going to touch it. Not going to touch the stuff. All right. Bullet point number 6. Claims the artwork as their own because of the aforementioned death of the author. If the different interpretations and even misinterpretations of the art are just as valid as the artist's, why not? The art is mine too. I claim that art for myself. And I'm going to actually give you an actual real life example of this. I had read a few months back that my own hometown of Seattle, oh, Seattle, what has become of you? Just an aside, I haven't been in Seattle in like 12 or 14 years, so I don't know really what's happened to my beloved Seattle hometown. But anyway, the Seattle Art Museum had recently done an exhibit of Harry Potter, and they actually erased any name or any mention. They erased any mention of J.K. Rowling. Now, whatever you feel about J.K. Rowling, what her reputation is based, it's been blown out of proportion by public opinion. Whether you agree with me or not, I would say, why are you having Harry Potter without one or two mentions of who brought the world into existence at the start? Why are you showcasing Harry Potter if you can't even do that? Well, it's this attitude, it's this mindset that, well, I claim that art. Harry Potter, I can enjoy, it's mine. It's mine just as much as it is the artist's. And we're safe and we're comfortable enough to say we can claim Harry Potter for our own. We can claim the franchise for our own. It's ours. I have the books, I've watched the films, and it doesn't matter if we mention the original artist or not. So that actually happened in the Seattle Art Museum. I don't know how far they took it, but I did read the headlines a few months back. So the attitude that you can claim the artwork as your own, like as if you made it, because death of the author. It's like, oh, no, my version and my interpretation of Harry Potter is just as important, just as valid. It needs to exist on the same tier as J.K. Rowling. Bullet point number 7. The quality or value of the artwork is based on the court of public opinion. If the art can't be salvaged due to the seriousness of the crime, then the art must be burned or erased from all memory. Bullet point number 8. Corruption of the artist causes a moral quandary for the beholder. Therefore, the beholder either needs to outrage against the artwork or repress the knowledge of the artist to placate the situation. So they either will renounce publicly the art piece because they don't like the artist, or they repress it and ignore it. And this causes the moral quandary, or at least they're trying to placate that situation, having that quandary like, oh, I still got to be a good person. So either I'm going to outrage and I'm going to publicly announce or renounce, I should say, the artwork because I don't like the artist, or I'm just going to ignore it and pretend it didn't happen. And finally, bullet point number 9, renouncing the artwork is let me say this again. Renouncing the artwork is the rite of passage. The beholder becomes a mature adult who can endure leaving treasured things even when it's uncomfortable. When they can overcome things even when it's uncomfortable, say no to things that they've enjoyed for many years until they realize what the artist is about and who the artist is. Renouncing it is the rite of passage. You have become a mature adult because you've publicly renounced something you loved so much for so many years. So if you agree with any of these or all of these, you may have the mindset where you cannot separate the art from the artist. All right, moving on down. This is not as exhaustive a list, but mindset number 2, you can separate the art from the artist. Number 1, the art should be supported irregardless of who gets what in profit. Number 2, the beholder's purchase is his own decision and action of his own free moral agency. So, for instance, the beholder must be free to purchase cheerfully, not compelled to subject himself to the throngs of public opinion. He is also just as free to ignore the art if his conscience compels it. If the beholder can't morally accept it, don't buy it. No one is forcing you to. Number 3, good art and the preservation of good art is the result of this decision, not the monetary benefit of the artist. It's to preserve the good art, irregardless of who gets what and what the artist gets. It's the art that's important, not the artist. The artist, however corrupt, will be judicially taken care of. But don't soil or burn or erase or take away the good art that is. Number 4, leave the art untouched to be accessed and picked up by another beholder. Number 5, the artist's immoral nature and the art itself are not inseparable. So, however corrupt the artist is, that is not in any way linked to the art itself, unless it is propaganda resulting from the artist's immoral nature. But propaganda, I believe, is not art. So if the art has nothing to do with the artist's corrupt nature, then it is okay, if it is a good piece of art, to still behold it and appreciate it. And lastly, regardless of the artist's nature, people should be free to view the art. The freedom is also of what's important. All right. And really, before we get into the chat and do some regular casual discussion, I wanted to mention the artist's benefit for choosing mindset number 2. So my benefit, my personal benefit as an artist myself for choosing the mindset, you can, in fact, separate the art from the artist. And I'll give you a few examples. I am free from any moral quandary. And here's what I mean. I'm a Christian and I'm an artist. So I'm a musician, a composer, and a writer. And so, of course, I compose instrumental music. If a Satanist enjoys my music, I am not bound to his beliefs or his actions. If a witch listens to my music to inspire witchcraft, I am not bound to her actions or the result of her actions. I am separate to that, and therefore my music in this instance is separate from me. So this is where it would be an actual psychological and emotional break from my music, because someone who fundamentally I would be theologically and spiritually in opposition with, if they listen to my music, I'm not bound to that. I'm not bound to anything that they do, even if they are just loving my music. And even if they came up to me and say, "Hey, I'm this. I know you're a Christian. I'm this. And I use your music to inspire this antithetical thing, this thing that you would never do and never support." It's like, well, I'm not bound to your actions just because you listen to my music. That's a personal benefit for when you separate the art from the artist. And there have been potential moral quandaries I've seen with celebrities, specifically celebrities who speak out against political opponents. So political opponents who use their music for their rallies. I think Bruce Springsteen was one. Many, many musicians came out against former President Trump, for instance, for daring to use their music for his political rallies. Now, actually, licensed speaking and legally speaking, there are major venues that have licensing agreements where you don't get to say as a musician, like, no, that area, that venue, that space is free to do any music irregardless of what the musician says, so you can't bring them to, to a major lawsuit or anything. So I think it was Springsteen who had a really bad problem with Trump using his music for the rallies. Now, this is a problem. This is a dangerous, I want to say dangerous, it's kind of dangerous to me, speaking on the moral level and spiritual level. But this is a big mistake musicians would make, going against their political opponents and say, "Don't you dare use my music." Why? What happens when you do this is you are putting yourself in the position of endorsing something else or someone else with your music. So if you're opposing someone because they're using your music, you're by default actually causing an endorsement of something else or someone else. And that could be dangerous in case that person or that thing becomes corrupt in the future. And then you have to answer to that. So I would say don't endorse either way. Don't be bound to the actions of anyone but yourself. Be free that your art exists outside you in these instances. And those are my notes. Let's go ahead and welcome the chat again. Let's go ahead and go back to the chat. All right. And actually, I'll be right back. I spilled some water. I need to go ahead and pick that up before it gets into the wood. All right, so those were my notes. So I know that's not even scratching the surface as far as the art from the artist, separating the art from the artist, or maybe you can, maybe you can't. So I did want to provide both mindsets. Like, what if you believe this, then you might have the inclination of believing yes you can, no you can't. So let's go ahead and go to the chat and see what you have to say. There are a lot of examples actually of this, and what I would say. The banner is still up. I just realized that. Oh, well. Awesome. That's okay. Hide. All right. There we go. So anyway, what was I saying? Going back to the comments. There are many examples, and what I would say to anyone, even if you're not sure what to think, go with what your conscience tells you. So if you really, within reason, if you can't support the art because it does bother you that the artist has done something, then don't support the art. But if you really do feel like you can break away from that saying, well, this is a really good piece of art. This is a good painting. This is a good poem. This is a good book. I really want to keep this story. I want to see this movie again. Then I think that's fine too. So it's really going with your conscience. I would never compel anyone to go against their conscience, even if I disagree with them. I say, hey, that's your conscience. You do what you feel is right, and that's all we can ever ask of anyone else. So anyway, thank you, Eldridge Fan, for your super chat. Han shot first, and yeah, and that was recorded too. So artists, especially with films, you can't, or any published things, you can't really backtrack once it's recorded. But again, that might be a whole other can of worms. All right, wow, you guys have so many comments. Let's go through them. All right, so Lynn Green says, I have a stream starting in a few minutes. Oh, sorry. Okay, glad you stopped by for that. But since it hasn't been posted yet, I'll hang out here until it starts. Hail sounded great around the chat. Yeah, hail is cool. I don't think I'm like I know you. That's isn't that the common greeting for the Iron Age or something like that? And I want to support independent artists for sure, but I will also be very careful, like not to like jump on a bandwagon, even if it's with people I agree with. All right. I feel like my microphone is quite loud, but we'll see. Samuel Proctor says, that's one of the reasons why I think Gotham should have been set in the Rust Belt and not in the on the East Coast. I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, you're talking about what Daniel said. Pittsburgh needs a few dozen Batmen. It's funny. Hello, Ghost Planet. Good to see you. If I may give an example, so this is Eldritch Fan, and let me go ahead and read this example. I recently tried to reread The Alienist by Carr after that awful series, and to my horror, the objectionable parts are still in the subtext. That is all about the blank slate theory. The main character even says it's so in one chapter. It's all about how wise psychiatrists, alienists, have to wean children away from destructive, superstitious of their evil backwards families, church tradition, etc. All about tradition, how tradition screws up kids when we need enlightened alienists to fix us. I can't, in good conscience, recommend that book anymore. Yeah, okay, so this is interesting. This is a different thing where the person's intentions and philosophies are in the text, like it's spelled out there. Now, I'm not saying you should erase that book or have it cease to exist, even though it's there, and it would be fundamentally in opposition to some religions and some philosophies. So where I would say is that, to me, from the little I even read there, I would say I probably couldn't consciously, with a clear conscience, read something like that as a Christian. I mean, there's some science fiction out there that I can't really read with a good, clear conscience. Should I say ban it or have it not exist? No, that's for the art to stay. Anything that would be effectively propaganda, like in the political sphere, I would say, well, I don't think that's art, because something about, like, I'd have to look into it as far as history is concerned, but the state with USSR and stuff like that, and some camps where the state would actually pay the artist to do something, whether compelling the artist or threatening the artist or whatever like that. That's a whole other can of worms. So that's another topic. But so my argument to your example, Eldritch Fan, is that yes, as repulsive as something like that would be to you or I or a religious person, that's still not any reason that art should cease to exist. But it can be up to us to recommend it or not recommend it. And if you can say, oh, you know what, I can't really recommend this, even if it's well done, I can't really recommend this based on the material inside. Now, that is a good example of where the art just is pretty much the embodiment of the artist's philosophy. And Should it be banned? No. But I would say to that person, to the viewer or the reader, proceed with caution. Yeah. All right, Samuel Proctor makes a pretty good point. If someone doesn't interpret the way the artist intended, that's the artist's fault. They need to be clear if so. Now, actually, I would say yes, that's true, but we're also talking about people who refuse to see the artist's intentions. So, for instance, this is a hyperbole. This is an exaggeration, but you can't see anything other than Christian allegory for something like C.S. Lewis, with his Chronicles of Narnia. And so if someone would say, "Well, I am dynamically opposed to the Christian faith. I'm going to use my own faith or my own philosophies that are antithetical to the Christian faith." Those philosophies are just as valid. The allegory that he's using, I'm actually going to use it for this specifically. And that's where it's a very immature idea. Like, no, no. C.S. Lewis, Chronicles of Narnia, obviously Christian allegory. You can't dance around it. And yes, this is controversial, but that is superior to anyone else's reinterpreting the original books. That's just how I believe it to be. Eldridge Fan says it's impossible to separate James Joyce from his art because everything he wrote is an autobiographical and full of Easter eggs about his life. Yeah, Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. I read that. I read that a long time ago, and I had very little reading comprehension at the time, so I'd have to reread it to understand it. I don't know if that's true of all of his works, but he also did poetry, right? Like out of Dublin. Like, didn't he write? I think I wrote a collection of his poems as well. And yeah, I don't know if that's true of all of his works, but I want to be surprised if that is a huge theme. Brian says the fourth bullet point makes me think of how people backed away from Michael Jackson's music because of the accusations brought against him. Yeah, this is a really good example too. And people might even unsubscribe my channel for me saying this, but I'm sorry, his music is very good. His music is very good, but I don't endorse him as a person for whatever he was accused of by listening to his music. And now some people would come to me say, well, you can listen to his music now because he's passed away. He can't benefit from his music. But if you ever bought any of his new albums that you thought were really good, that's on you. I'm like, no, it's not, because I do believe the music in and of itself is contained. Now, I would say if he wrote very good music, but there was lyrics and subtext that was very insinuating and very bad and very suggestive, that is well within my I would say outside my conscience. I can't that could not, by my conscience, could not permit me to support that specific track or support that specific album. But that's my conscience telling me that. If it's an instrumental or if it's lyrics that has nothing to do with any corrupt nature and it's still a good piece of music, I know a lot of people would disagree with me, but if I had the means, I would still buy that album and keep it and have a physical copy, whether or not it went to Michael Jackson himself and whether or not it benefited him monetarily speaking. Because why? The court of public opinion really isn't a thing that should actually punish the criminal. The however lawful our judicial system should be, and that's a whole other can of worms, and I'm not even going to go into that. And let's be a little bit respectful of that topic, because that could be a whole political topic in and of itself. If you abide by a lawful judicial system in a good world, in a right world, the artist would be punished lawfully, but the art itself, the music itself, should not be punished. So yeah, Michael Jackson is a pretty good example of that as well. Elias Jones says, I actually liked L. Ron Hubbard's Battlefield Earth, but from an action movie book point of view, I'm not dipping into that well for wisdom. I actually don't know that, so thank you. Amy L says, this is the first time I've heard a name for the concept that the viewer's ideas are what makes art and not the artist's intentions. But meanwhile, we're still taught to write artist statements. Yeah, I guess that's true too. Yeah, I actually hadn't heard about Death of the Author when I went to school. I went to a liberal arts education and I never heard about Death of the Author. So I don't know how recent that is. I think that philosophy is like from the 60s, right? I'm not sure. But anyone want to put that in the chat, just let me know. Yeah, Andreas Hernandez, with regards to J.K. Rowling, she was not invited to the reunion. And a lot of people are saying stuff about her, from what I know, at least the little I know, that might be right or might be blown out of proportion. But whatever the case is, she is completely subjected to the court of public opinion. And I think that's for anyone. I don't care who you are. I think that's a very dangerous arena to be in. I don't think that should exist before an actual. I mean, with her, it was Twitter remarks that actually caused this firestorm. It wasn't even a crime she committed. In fact, there were a lot of people who did illegal things to her in response, like they doxed her house or something like that. I mean, it's okay to do something illegal and bring upon harm to someone you think says mean things on Twitter. I don't know the nature of the situation. I don't know if she's helped herself or not in the situation. She might have acted in an incorrect way as a response, but that's not for me to judge. And I really, really don't like people claiming Harry Potter as their own. It's like, no, that's not your art. So for Seattle Art Museum to have done that, I'm like, dude, no, that's not cool. You do not have the entitlement or the liberty to showcase someone else's art with the intention of never revealing who the artist is. That's a weird, very troubling thing to do. It's very strange. Lynn Green says, apparently Daniel and Emma, the actors, are more important and they refuse to be in the room with the woman who gave them their careers, fame, and fortune. That's the thing, is like, if you strongly disagree with J.K. Rowling for what she said on Twitter, at least have the decorum to say, well, she is a person who brought my career into existence. I have to acknowledge that. I don't endorse what she has said. I don't condone her as a person, but I must be thankful for the artwork itself that had my career take off. You can be very diplomatic about the situation. You can say, no, I don't endorse what she said. I don't agree with what she said. But we cannot ignore the fact that she started the whole thing that is the world of Harry Potter. It's so strange that people can't even get that very, very simple concept. Their feelings just take over all logic. You can absolutely be polite and nice and have decorum and show respect to the situation and what has happened in the past, and still say, I still do not endorse or condone this woman for what she said. But don't simply ignore, the thing that actually helped you in your career. It's oh man. Without Harry Potter, that first film, I don't even know if Daniel Radcliffe would have done anything more than theater acting, if he's done even that. So yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Final Fantasy fan says, why am I having a feeling that all this sounds a little like mob justice? Oh, with renouncing artwork because of the artist. It is kind of a mob mentality. It's very strange. If you search on YouTube the question, can you separate the art from the artist? You are going to get a slew of people who have a very specific mindset and they'll look a specific way, and they will make you feel bad if you feel that you can separate the art from the artist. They will try to, like, dance around it saying, "Well, maybe you can, but you really should feel guilty." And and they get angry. The way they talk to you through the camera, they get really ticked off at the very thought of you even believing that you can. They'll say things like, "Well, you have your freedom to think this way if you want, but you need to give a really good reason to either me or people around you if they ask why you can still support the art." It's like, I don't have to answer to you. I don't have to answer to any of you. Yeah, I subjected myself to, like, 3 or 4 of these videos last night. So, yeah. Brian Gilmartin says, "In other words, they renounce the art in order to virtue signal that and morally grandstand." Yes, that is the whole point. And I don't truly, if the art piece is in no way a propaganda piece, I don't think the art should be punished. I really do believe the art should be separate. You know, and it's working in the inverse in my favor as an artist. The worst person in the world, like, if someone came to me, I'm not really on social media besides YouTube, but, like, let's say it was public news that the worst dictator who's caused so much catastrophe and has caused the destruction of millions of lives listened to an album of mine. And then they say, "Well, you need to answer for that, sound engraver. You need to take a stand and be brave and stand against, like, I don't support him." I'm like, "Well, obviously I don't support him as a dictator." But he's listening to your music. Sorry, I can't control that. But if he's listening to your music, that means you're affiliated with his principles and philosophies and all the destruction. I'm like, "No, my music is not inseparable to me in that regard." It's like, I can't control him for listening to my music if he likes my music. That You're asking an impossibility of me. So anyone in the whole wide world can listen to my music, and I have no control of who does, and I don't have to answer to anyone who does. And there's freedom in that. There's absolute freedom in that. Private eye, you say, "I am confused now." I'm sorry. It was a lot of statements that I made, so it'd be fun to kind of write it out, maybe put it on a blog someday, but, yeah. Or maybe even just put it on a video, rereading it, and, have a little video essay with some music or something. I might do that. That might be a good idea. We'll see. A little later because 'cause I'm getting married in, like, 20 days, so I don't have time to do it now. All right. Brian Gilmartin talking to Private Eye. Samuel Proctor says, "There is a forgivable way to backtrack. It's called updated editions or director's cuts." I mean, yes, if it's in the control of the artist. And I know that's what you mean. What we're seeing now is, like, a constant revision, and the term update, so to speak, is like, "Oh, let's completely erase all what this body of work represented and what it was and what it meant to the world for generations. Let's just do it our own way. We'll use the name, we'll use the title, we'll use the fame, and we'll just do it our own way." Amy L says, some kinds of art cause more problems. Music is one of them. Font designs are another. I've been toured by Gilson since I heard about the controversy. Now, are you a visual artist? Because I'm not really up to date on visual art, so I probably won't recognize a lot of names, contemporary or otherwise. Lynn Green says, "I'm still here. Yeah, the Iron Age greeting. I see it as reminiscent of Rome. Oh, or medieval greeting, almost Tolkien. Yeah, I think that's cool. Like, you guys could hail amongst yourselves. I just, um, yeah, hail, I guess, is fine." I'm not for it or against it. But it's funny. Like, I really support the idea of the Iron Age. I think that's really cool. But man, I have seen presentations of artwork and stories I would support, but they are not. There are two things. they're not presented in a professional way, so maybe there are grammatical errors or something's missing or something like that, or they just don't market themselves. And I would love to market these people, but it's like, you also need to market yourselves. I mean, big name people I've come across, I'm like, "Where are you on YouTube? I don't see you anywhere." And I wanna support you, but, like, you gotta support you. So, yeah. So Iron Age is good. I like the sentiment behind it. I like the vision behind it, but it's kind of I'm for it, but I'm also proceeding with caution as well. All right. Continuing on. Yeah, Andreas Hernandez says, "Hail indeed, long live the Rippaverse." Yeah, Rippaverse is man, it's taken off. I'm so happy for Eric July and his team and everyone involved. I'm very happy that this is happening. And the thing is he's put up with so much, not just online controversy, but the thing is he's now having legal things he has to take care of as a businessman, and I was like, "Good night." And he's paving the way for setting up a model, not just for an artistic model, artistically speaking, but he's also setting up a business model. Like, if you're a business owner of a graphic novel or a graphic novel company, you're gonna have to take care of a lot of bad actors, and you're gonna have to be really responsible. And I will be honest, guys, I really hope a lot of other people will be as successful as Eric July, but he has just kinda listening to him, I'm like, "Oh my goodness." He's an artist businessman hybrid, and that is very, very rare. And, it's not enough to be an artist, unfortunately, to get your art prevalent like Eric July. There are steps to take. To take it even to a fraction of that level. But yeah, he's good, and he's an example to follow. Samuel Proctor says, "Yeah, well, oh well, yeah. Once the consumer actively refuses something clearly spelled out, that becomes a consumer problem instead. It's up to the buyer, I would say. What I do not support." Because again, everything sets a precedent. That's what people don't understand. People would come to me and say, "How can you allow this profane piece of art to exist? Like, you're a Christian." Or it's like maybe it's something conservative and saying, "How can you let this problematic Christian piece exist?" And it's like, it is not my call to ban any art. It is up to the buyer. It's up to the person viewing the art. I don't make that call. You know, I am not the judge when it comes to that. All I can do is support the idea that art is free to be picked up and accessed. And I mean, I think I heard there was one time I heard some commentator say, like, Jordan Peterson even had like a room of propaganda art pieces because he was fascinated with them. Like, I wouldn't prefer that myself. But it's like, okay, have him have the freedom to have that, like, to understand history and understand the psychology that went into the state, the Soviet Union or something like that. You gotta know your history, and so maybe you understand what they were working with, what the psychology was back then, with propaganda pieces. So have someone like Jordan Peterson have that freedom to have that kind of art. And so even and there's so much. I mean, as a liberal arts major, having 3 music degrees, I saw profane art all the time, and I saw dances, and I saw visual pieces, and I saw sculpture, and I saw music pieces that were absolutely antithetical to my Christian faith. 100%. But would I call for the banning of that art? No. No. And people do have to be mindful, saying, "Well, it exists. It's gonna hurt me. It's gonna taint me." It's like, you have the conscience. I believe everyone has a conscience. You have the conscience to say no. You have a conscience to walk away. You have the conscience to say, "I'm not gonna be tainted by that art piece. I understand it as it's an art piece, but I'm not going to be sullied, like psychologically and spiritually sullied just because that art piece is against my Christian beliefs, for instance, you know? So, yeah, I saw a lot of stuff that I'm like, "Oh, well, I could," like, one of the best dances, best modern dance I ever saw was something that was absolutely politically against my Christian faith, and it was a good dance piece. It was very well done, and I would never deny how well done that was, and I'm like, "Well, okay." Now, because it was so politically, forward and brave and stunning and stuff like that, everyone in that room gave her a standing ovation. Now, by my conscience, I clapped because it was a good piece of art, but I didn't give her a standing ovation because they were giving her a standing ovation because she spoke, she expressed herself in such a way. And I'm like, well, I can understand it's a good dance piece. It was really well done. It was actually very well done. I won't deny that. But I'm not going to give the standing ovation because the whole room is giving her a standing ovation. Yeah, I was the black sheep in that room, but but I did applaud, because it it was a good piece of art. I'll never forget it. All right. So let's continue on. Luis Sanchez, what's up? What's up to you? All right. Many were watching Barbie wrong and finding a message the writer and director didn't intend. Oh my goodness, Lynn Green. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That is a whole other video. We probably won't get to today because it's already getting close to 7. And I don't want this stream to be too long. I'll still be there a few minutes, but that is a whole other can of worms. That could actually be its own video. I might even respond to that. Yeah. Good point there. Yeah, that was ridiculous. Conservative commentators, I got so not flustered. I didn't get emotionally angry, but I was very surprised at the intellectual decline of conservative commentators when they were saying, "Ken is the real hero. It's all about Ken, guys. The message was that the men were cooler." And it's like, that was not the director's intention. That was not the writer's intention of that film. And conservatives, so many people, and I wasn't watching these videos, but they were in my feed. I don't listen to a lot of commentary on politics. I'll maybe listen to a couple channels, and even then, I used to listen to them every day, like 2 or 3 times a day, and now it's like, I listen to them, like, once a week or once every 2 weeks. And so even because of that, I'll get commentators on in my YouTube feed that I don't want to hear, from, because not I'm not against them as people, I just don't prefer to listen to that. But I'll see their headlines, I'll see their thumbnails, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, are you for real? You actually think that Barbie was an absolute achievement for the conservatives because it was bringing back, like, the preference to the masculine, like the masculine being oppressed, and it really was all about the war on men and stuff like that." It's like, no, that was not the writer's intention. Stop it. Stop it. And that actually, Lynn Green, that watching Barbie wrong, and something that is in opposition to what the director of Barbie wanted, that's an example of death of the author. That's the example, and I think that's the problem with political commentators. They will raise that kind of firestorm and fuel that fire, and I would say I would disagree with that. I do not support the death of the author, and even if it's people, because I'm Christian, I have conservative principles, you know, man, even people I would agree with, I'm thinking that is not a you are not wise in that supposition. You're not wise in your videos in this regard. Stop it. The artist, the writer, she got what she wanted with the Barbie film. Stop thinking it was anything else. I didn't see Barbie. I will never see Barbie. But some people who would be so against that film saw Barbie, and then they try to put their own spin on it. I'm like, "No. No, no, no. Do not set that precedent." So, anyway. All right. Actually, you guys, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and step away for a few minutes. I'll bring because I'd like to continue for a few more minutes. I don't want to cut the stream short if we can, but I need to take a few minutes and set up the music. And I'll be right back in a few minutes. 1 second. All right, I'm back. All right. Okay, so let's go back to the comments. All right, where are we? So, okay. Brian Gil Martin says, blame it on the zeitgeist. In this age, people are way too hyper partisan for their own good, largely as a result of the mainstream media and internet echo chambers. And I think, Brian, you raise a good point for a whole other topic. Man, you guys just, man, you get in my mind, just like my brain is just, shooting sparks and flying sparks everywhere because I'm getting all these ideas for based on what you're saying. You're absolutely right. I on the one hand, I am very grateful that I live in this time of history. I think living any time before like 1930, I think would be pretty hard. Even though 20th century was also really ugly, ugly. But I'm very grateful. I mean, I'm so grateful that I live in this time because I was meant to compose electronic music, and we didn't really have that much time before us where we could compose electronic music. So on one hand, I'm very grateful for living in this age. On the second, on the other hand, oh no, the chat jumped. I'm listening. I'm watching your comment. What was I saying? Let me start that over. On the one hand, I am grateful for living in this age. On the other hand, I absolutely hate that it is the most reactionary thing I've ever seen. When you have a position, whether religious or philosophical or political, most people now, if you've noticed, they are acting as the antithesis of another position. They're not actually so much having a position for something. It's always about positioning themselves against something. And I'm not saying that's, where you would say, oh, I'm for this, therefore I'm against this. Yeah, obviously. But it's almost as if, oh, well, I'm not for that at all. I'm like, well, what are you for? I don't know, but I'm not for that. I know I'm not for that. I'm anti that. And it's like, stop it, stop it. And Brian raises a good point where that with mainstream media and the echo chambers, it's like all I ask of the world, if I were to ask anything of the world, this would be my wish that everyone thinks things through and everyone thinks things on a deeper level. That's what I would ask of the world. If we were all granted the wish to make the world better, that would be my wish. Please. Like, with the whole Ken versus Barbie argument with the commentators, I'm like, "You're not thinking this through." I wish you did. I wish you had, because that was very much a reactionary response to the Barbie movie on the conservative side. I'm like, "That's ridiculous. Why did every major player of conservative commentary jumped on that. They were like, "Yeah, this is what it's about." And it's like, "No, that's wrong. You're absolutely wrong to think about that." Uh, so anyway, let's continue on. All right. Oh, okay, so Amy Ellis says Eric Gill is also a painter. Okay, I thought it was a visual artist involved. Yeah. Um, Actually, so Elias Jones, I actually do not know the history of Michael Jackson. So it sounds like a lot of what happened with him was again, just like with everything else these days, it's held at the court of public opinion, not through an actual lawful judicial system. But I'm only saying that because right now I want to be careful saying that because I don't really know the story behind Michael Jackson. I just only know that he was a very much a controversial figure involving children. So you're saying I'll say or speculate because again I don't know myself. You're mentioning that there was plenty of financial and political incentive to find him guilty, and courts still found him innocent. Okay, so I didn't know that story. Well, if that is true, and I'd have to look at that myself, before I would listen to people, but I always look to things myself before I have my own opinion. Um, if that's true, I would feel even better. But like at the same time, it's like, you know, Billie Jean, okay? It's a great song. And it's about a well, I can't even remember. Is it about a I can't remember on stream. The story behind it is not so nice, but man, that bass line. So anyway. Thank you, Ghost Planet. You are green 100%. Awesome. Jordan said he has those art pieces because he's fascinated by something he sees in them over the years. The farther away the Soviet Union is from memory, so is the propaganda. Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point, Samuel Proctor. Yep. And again, I would just stress that he has the right to have that for his own speculation, for his own education. He absolutely has the right to have a room of propaganda pieces out of the Soviet Union. I mean, I don't know too much about that story, but I had heard someone I follow, someone I listen to on YouTube say as much. So, yeah. All right. Brian Gilmartin says this whole Barbie situation is why I don't listen to pop conservative commentators anymore and haven't for years. And Brian, oh, this is like I'm getting real with you guys here, but and I'll have decorum when I say this. I want to approach this gently. Even people I respect on an intellectual level, it's getting harder and harder to listen to them. The bigger they get, what with a radio show or a podcast or some kind of media or a YouTube channel, the bigger they get, the harder it is to listen to them. Now, I'm not saying that people who really do blow up on YouTube or do have a podcast that just skyrockets. I'm not saying the bigger your audience, the worse you're going to get as a commentator. No, I'm not saying that at all. But people fall into this trap. They're so enticed. They're so incentivized to bring up the most uh, crass arguments, the most dramatized, not dramatized, overly dramatic. They love the melodrama, and the more I see it, the more fake outrage. If it's not fake, In some cases, I do believe it is fake outrage, but if it's not fake, I'm like, "What are you doing with your life? Why if this makes you so upset, why are you spending your time?" Even if you're paid a lot of money. Like, even if you're paid a lot of money to respond to these situations, it's like, why do you spend so much time dwelling on the things that make you so upset? And people blame the far left for doing this. It's like, it's everyone. Like, and especially people, especially commentators who really raise their pitchforks. And there's I listened to a podcast, and it's gotten to the point where I only listen to they have a team of about 7 or 8 people, maybe 9 or 10 people, and they'll bring guests from time to time. I really only listen to the person who started it all. I've come to have a hard time listening to the other presenters because they get so overly dramatic. And it's one older person that just keeps everything intact, everything aligned. And, even so, I just if it's a thumbnail that's they recently, they aren't banned from, YouTube or the platform, but they because they have been disincentivized for posting videos, they put a lot more obscene videos, sorry, obscene thumbnails. I'm like, you're just you're just I don't know. I know people who have grown, and it's getting worse and worse. And even even people I have found to be funny over the years, like, I will laugh and stuff like that, everything is becoming so canned and so inauthentic, or maybe it is authentic of them, but they do not know that they're dumbing down. That their intellect is going down, it's on the decline. Um, their jokes are going just so they out of thin air, and people are really trying to laugh it up saying, "Oh, that's really funny." I'm like, like, people blamed, like, on the conservative side, that the conservatives all this is somewhat political, but whatever. I'm just trying to make a point. For years and years and years with the presidency of Donald Trump, conservatives would go after liberal commentators and go after liberal comedians saying, "You guys always pick on Donald Trump and stuff like that. This is old. This is," and I would agree with them. I'm like, "Yeah, this is a stupid, tired tactic, and it doesn't work. It's not funny." And now they're doing the same. I was like the and it was a slow evolution with some people I was watching, this very slow evolution. And then finally I've been listening to this one person for years, and I finally, like 2 weeks ago, I've been listening to a few of his videos, and I haven't laughed once. In fact, my reaction has been, "This is stupid. You have stupid humor now. You used to be so funny." But the bigger he got, the worse it got. It's just it's a phenomenon. I like, ugh, I'm not saying it happens to everyone, but that was my honest sound engraver moment. I hope you guys aren't scared away. Anyway, let's continue. Oh, it's after 7. All right. We'll continue on down. Yeah, so Brian Gilmore, that was a great point. Yeah, I'm going to audiobooks, I'm going to music videos for, music channel, YouTube channels. I'm going to I just I'm getting to the point. The drama is just it's not worth it anymore because problems aren't getting solved. It's like, "Oh, we're gonna make fun of this because this is a problem." Like, "Okay, it's a problem, so what are you gonna do about it?" "Nothing." Then don't talk about it. Now I'm getting all cantankerous. Anyway, Samuel Proctor says, "I don't know. From what I've seen, this might be a situation of the artist's intention wasn't clear." Okay, that can be true, and if that's the case, the artist needs to have the mastery of that particular thing. The mastery of it is important to make, and by intentions, I'm not talking about the artist's nature. Like, whatever sci-fi you read of mine, whatever music you hear, unless it changes years down the road, you don't have to know anything about me hearing my music to like it. In fact, I have people come to me on my, comments and stuff like, "Whoa, oh, you're an electronic music producer or electronic composer and you have this idea about pop culture? I did not expect that." It's like, "Yeah, I mean, yeah, I talk about SuperCollider and I make electronic music, and yes, I'm a conservative Christian." "What? Wait, you were from the liberal arts and you don't have that mindset?" "Oh, I followed you because I thought you were like one of us." I'm like, "Well, you can still like my music. You don't have to agree with what I say." But a lot of people couldn't do that. A lot of people unsubscribed after they knew who I was as an artist. My point is, you don't have to hear my music to understand who I am. And that's gonna be true of some sci-fi even. I'll write sci-fi stories for the sake of writing good stories, and I don't plan on having having any Christian allegory in it. If I do, that's, like, years down the road, and I can't foresee that right now, but then again, it would be obvious. But if someone likes my sci-fi work and say, "What? Like, you're about this?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, "But I read your books, I like you, but I don't like you. I like your books, but I don't like you." I'm like, "You don't have to like me. If you like my stories, you can like my stories. You don't have to like me as a person." So yeah, I had a lot of artists who initially, followed my channel because I was in SuperCollider, and they thought, "Oh, wow, that's the coolest thing," and then they started listening to my live streams, and I'm like, "What? I can't listen to you anymore." Alright. I'm gonna actually, scroll down a little further in the comments, uh, and it's because you're talking amongst yourselves, and there are names that I don't recognize, so I do apologize. All right. Ghost Planet says, I'm tired of politics and just want to be entertained. That's true too. But Professor Geek and I have talked about this, and he's probably talked about this on his streams. To us, actually, to he and I, it's more important than just being entertained. Yes, that's true, but that's the surface of it. It's to be moved. It's to be inspired. It's to feel like a transcendental experience. Maybe not on the divine tier. It could be because he and I are Christians, so we could use Christian references and stuff and have a Christian experience with art. That's absolutely true. But it's more than entertainment. Like I, for instance, am entertained by the Batman animated show, but I'm also moved by it because it is so artistically done. And then there are some moments where I think would I think some kids can resonate, but there are some moments where we're like, "Whoa, that's deep." And I have found myself with some of those episodes just tearful. Like I'm almost crying because I'm so moved by an experience between 2 characters, like 2 brothers with different pasts or a reconciliation or, someone who is lost. I mean, I remember oh my gosh, I'm gonna expose myself, just reveal a little bit about myself, just a little vulnerable, but it has to be done. But, uh but I remember, watching an episode She-Ra, and now She-Ra is a even more cartoony than He-Man. I know that's weird to say. So it really was for young girls. I think I like the animated series He-Man better because I feel like it was for boys, but it was also just I don't know. I think an adult can resonate with He-Man just a little bit better. I feel like She-Ra is a little too Care Bears for me, but a character that I really appreciated with She-Ra was, I is Shadow Weaver. I absolutely love her as a villain, and that episode with Shadow Weaver's backstory, and she's, like, writhing in pain because there's a beam of light on her, and she's almost withering away, she's screeching and hollering, and her old mentor wants her to come back to the light, and she's like, "Never, never," and, like, the voice acting is so well done, and she's writhing in her evil, and it's just I choked up. because it's this old mentor who had her as a student, and he's a good man and he wants her to come back. Like, oh my gosh. There's some deep stuff with this. And so, yes, to be entertained, absolutely, but even to be better is to be moved and inspired. I think that's what all art and all entertainment should be. And yeah, if you just reach the surface level of just being entertained, yes, that is good in and of itself. But I would say even more than that is the artist role is to be uh or I'm sorry, the function of the art rather is to move and inspire. I'm that is what art is to me. So anyway, Amy L says, I want to be tired of politics, but when your birthplace is being destroyed by a dictatorship, you just go into depression. Oh my gosh. You don't have to tell me where you are specifically, but I hope wherever you are um, in the world. Yeah, I feel you. I really feel like no matter how bad it is for the United States, my heart goes out to the UK. I just hate what's happening in the UK. I pray for the UK quite often. All right, going back to art. Yeah, Ghost Planet says, I consume stories responsibly. I own physical media. Awesome. Anime and manga, also awesome. And alternatives that's how you win in the culture. Yes, physical media, guys. You gotta have physical media. That's the only way to preserve art these days. And I'm old school too. I love B-rated movies and horror movies and giant monsters. I could probably do the giant monsters, but I can't do horror. But I probably could enjoy, I think I will enjoy Universal Monsters when we get around to that. Thank you, Ghost Planet. You agree with me and the professor. Awesome. Thank you so much. Um, excuse me. All right. Samuel Proctor says, for some reason, I knew you were referring to the Two Brothers episode. Yeah, in Batman animated series. Yeah, that got me. Whew, that got me so hard. Baby doll episode moved me to tears. You know what? Yeah, that last scene, and I won't spoil it, but that last scene, ooh, yeah. I was not expecting to feel for that character. At first, I was annoyed with the character. She's an interesting concept as a villain. It's probably a good call that they didn't really exaggerate her presence in screen time because it's you know, she doesn't have the same villainous presence as, the Penguin, for instance, or the Riddler. But she was a very interesting character. She's a very, very interesting villain, and her backstory, and then what happens at the end of that episode. Yeah, I'm empathetic. I'm a little prof knows every time there's a scene that probably could be very sentimental and emotional, the credits will roll, and he says, "Are you okay, baby?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine." Yeah, exactly. I'm just gonna put that right up there. I didn't mean to. I'm like, oh gosh. Yeah, man, that series is so good. So good. All right. So, I think we'll end it there. What's on the dock for this week? I don't know because I'm getting married, so I'm kind of preparing, working two jobs, and I'm getting married in 3 weeks. So, I think what I'll do is probably cut out some parts of the stream, maybe have it condensed. Maybe I'll even, uh, write out the script and have people see it. Just I don't think that would be a thing that would get views, but just where I am as far as art is concerned. And I think that's what we'll do today. So I should expect to stream next Sunday. Uh, so what are we? We're in October. Happy October, guys! Yeah, we're in October. So October 1st. So the 8th is, yeah. I think I probably should at least be able to stream at least one more week. And if I can sneak in a stream the following week before getting married, I think that will work. And then once the dust settles and we're married and we come back home and take care of house stuff, I think come November, I would really like to get back into, especially SuperCollider, um, but maybe just music in general. So anyway, I think we will wrap it up there. So thank you so much for always watching and listening and talking about the deep stuff, talking about the art, because art is unfortunately a highly controversial topic, but it's what I do. You know me. I make music. I write science fiction. It's a very important part of me, and I would like to talk about art as much as I can. So without further ado, let's wrap it up there. And I will see you guys so much. Thanks for the super chats and to those who super chatted. And thanks all for you guys. And until I see you next, keep producing, preserving, and promoting the good art that you love. Take care.